Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of What the Dementia by Bambu Care. I'm your host, Brianna Wilson. I am a certified dementia practitioner and the founder of Bambu Care. So today's episode is going to be about why your partner may be hiding things and what you can do about it. So today there's no real housekeeping, but I will say that if you haven't already, be sure to sign up for our newsletter at letsbamboo.com. It's at the very bottom of the page, okay? And I'll be sending out a what you may have missed type of email called Panda Mail at the end of every month. So if you want to make sure that you haven't missed anything in the world of Bambu Care or What the Dementia, make sure that you sign up. I also wanted to let you know that our March freebies are now available. So if you want to check them out as well as our other resources, all you have to do is go to letsbamboo.com as well and click the resources tab, okay? So let's go ahead and get into this topic. So last month I received 2 questions around the same time, which made me think, I should probably do a podcast on this topic. I mean, it's a really good topic and it's a common issue that many care partners have to deal with. So the first question was around hiding things and how you would modify that behavior. And in this case, she stated that her loved one would misplace things like her checkbook, mail, small valuable items, and then get extremely anxious and cry when she couldn't find them. And then the second question I received was, what can I do when the patient misplaces items around the house? Is there a typical hiding place? So these are both very loaded questions because how you would approach the situation depends on a number of things. And shameless plug, but this is why our new dementia care book is going to be really helpful for some of you because it will walk you through identifying the trigger of something you may be noticing and what to do about it in the specific case of your partner using the Panda Method. Now, for this podcast episode, we aren't going to get into the Panda Method because honestly, that would make this episode far too long, and I have a feeling it's already going to be a little long. So instead, I'm going to just give you some tips and some things to think about, okay? So first, let's clarify a bit what the focus of this podcast episode will be about. So some of you may be dealing with accusations. This could be because your partner has hid or misplaced something and doesn't remember, and so they blame you for its disappearance. Some of you may be dealing with a similar issue to the lady I received a message from, in that the misplacement of the items is causing your partner a lot of distress when they can't remember or find where they put something. And then some of you may be dealing with loved ones who hide or even throw away your possessions, their own too, but the situation is causing you distress because you can't find what you need or something important to you has gotten thrown away. So in this podcast episode, we aren't going to talk about dealing with accusations, okay? We are going to solely focus on the act of your partner hiding things and it causing distress for them because they can't find their stuff, or for you because you can't find your stuff, okay? Now, I may do a follow-up episode on my best advice for dealing with accusations, but that won't be in this episode, okay? Now, let me start by saying that you may not be able to completely stop your partner from hiding things, which is why I loved when I was asked how to modify the behavior, okay? Now, to best figure out how you can intervene, you first have to understand why they are hiding things to begin with and when the behavior started. And there's so many things to think about. And sometimes, they may say things that can clue you in to what may be triggering the behavior. Maybe they've mentioned that someone has stolen from them in the past or that people have messed with their stuff. Maybe they mentioned just trust of someone in the house. This could be a person that actually lives there or doesn't. This could even be triggered by real or imagined events, okay? But one thing I don't want you to get caught up on is whether the situation is real or imagined. Because for the person living with dementia, it is all real, okay? So you just have to treat everything as if it is real, okay? It's also important to realize that they may not be intentionally hiding things, but simply just putting things where they don't belong. This could be because they got distracted while handling something and just put it down somewhere random. I know I'm personally super guilty of this. They could also be putting things where they don't belong because they're unable to distinguish between what's important and what's not, or what's theirs and what's not, what they have business fooling with and what they don't, or because they have difficulty identifying an object and its purpose altogether, which can then result in objects being placed in odd places. So there's a lot that can be going on, and sometimes the object in question doesn't actually exist in real time. Maybe it's never existed, or maybe it's something they used to have years ago but is no longer in their possession. So, whatever the case, if they are hiding actual objects, you're going to have to do some detective work to see what may be the reason your partner is seemingly hiding things. Whether an object is misidentified or purposely hidden, they can really end up anywhere in the house, okay? But let me tell you a few common places, all right? So, under mattresses, and random drawers throughout the house, under rugs and plants, in the refrigerator or freezer, in the washer or dryer, in the couch, inside shoes, underneath lamps, a random box or container, coat pockets, inside of pockets in a purse, pant pockets, right? Unfortunately, even the sink drain or trash can. So, really, guys, anywhere that can be lifted, opened, or tucked into, a person living with dementia can hide it in. Just like if you were trying to hide something from someone, you can get really creative, okay? So some people have pretty standard hiding places, and for some, it's just the most convenient location or the location that makes the most sense to them at the time. So if you have cameras in your home, or if you can keep a discreet but watchful eye on your partner, this may help you locate some of the hiding places. But sometimes, like I said, they can get really creative, and so it can be really hard to figure out. And so, if you do happen to find objects in places they don't belong, or discover one of your partner's hiding places, I definitely recommend that you keep a journal or something like a notepad and write them down, because they may gravitate towards the same places, or you may start to notice patterns. So let's talk about some general tips for what you can do. Please keep in mind that all these tips may not be relevant to your situation, depending on what you've learned about your partner's specific situation, okay? So just use what you can and table the rest, or maybe it will spark another idea. Okay, so tip number one, which has several tips within it, is to modify the environment. So, with environmental modification, our number one priority is always safety. So, if there's something that you don't want your partner fooling with because it's personal, it's hazardous, dangerous, or for any other reason, put it up. Okay, put it where it cannot be reached, or lock it up. If there's a lot of clutter throughout the home, you may find cleaning up and organizing to be helpful, as well as the more there is laying around, the more there is to potentially mess with. Also, the tidier the home is, the easier it will be to find misplaced items. You'll also want to try to eliminate or limit hiding places as best as you can. So, for example, if your partner likes to stick things in sink drains, then for one, if you have a garbage disposal, you may want to disconnect it, as that can lead to a very dangerous situation, and install something like drain traps or disposal strainers to either keep them from putting anything in the sink, or for you to be able to catch something if it is put in the sink, okay? If your partner likes to stuff things under the rugs, then it may be worth getting rid of the throw rugs, as they're a significant tripping hazard anyway, okay? If your partner loves the drawers and closets, then you can introduce locks or hard to open latches on the ones that they have no business being in. Now, if something like trash cans are a go-to place for items, then keeping smaller trash cans and checking them regularly and definitely before throwing out may be helpful. So ideas like that, okay? Another thing you can do is create designated places for items your partner has a tendency to hide. Now, this is something that you will have to collaborate with your partner on, and the more that you can make it seem like their idea, the better. So, when relevant, you can say something like, hey, what do you think about putting fill in the blank in here? When y'all agree on a place or location, such as a letter tray if it's mail, or a hook or basket if it's a key, a keepsake box, or like a catch all drawer, whatever works, you want to make sure that you label it so that it can be easily identified. And this can be just words or words in a picture if it helps. And when you label it, you don't want to just label it something random that you think is fitting. You want to label it something that they think is fitting and that makes sense to them. Now, depending on how far along your partner is on their dementia journey, you may have to remind them to use it, or if something comes up missing and is later found, remind them where to place it. And definitely keep in mind that this method is not perfect, okay? And it may have to be adjusted over time or in general, especially if they don't tend to use it. There can be some trial and error involved, okay? Tip number 2, if it's something that you can make or get a copy or duplicate of, then you want to make sure that you get a copy or duplicate of it. So this could be glasses, keys, important documents that your partner won't give up. In the case of important documents, you can make them a copy and keep the original in a safe place. Now, in most cases, you aren't going to want to tell them this per se, you just kind of do it, Tip number 3, if they are open to you keeping things like important documents, a checkbook, or credit and debit cards, or medications, a passport, or an ID card, things like that, in a safe place, then this can be an arrangement you can try. And then you're just going to want to assure them that they can ask for it whenever they need it and go from there. Now, some people will be open to this and some just won't because they don't trust anyone to handle their possessions, or they feel like they are doing a good enough job handling their own possessions. And so this will kind of just be dependent upon your partner and their willingness to work with you on this type of thing. Tip number 4, investing in locator devices. So this can be helpful for keys, wallets, things like that. So you can use like an Apple AirTag or a tile, something like that. There's a few options available. You can kind of just do a general Google search and see whatever's most fitting. For a long time, I actually had a tile on my keys and in my wallet because I always misplaced them, and I still do. But the battery died and I never replaced it. So definitely make sure that if the locator device requires a battery, that you replace it, or like mine, it won't be of much use. And then lastly, tip number 5, for an item that has already been misplaced in an unknown location, you can offer to help them find it and reassure them that you are sure it will come up. If you can't find it right away, you could maybe redirect them by saying, well, I haven't found it just yet, but I'm going to keep looking, or I'm going to keep trying. In the meantime, would you like to fill in the blank? This way, they may be able to take their mind off of it for a bit and move on to something else, okay? Now, when you redirect, make sure you redirect to something they wouldn't mind doing. Like, for example, if it were me, I would not want to be redirected to go for a walk with you because, well, that's not fun to me, and I'm probably going to say no. So make sure that it's something that makes sense for your partner, okay? Now, the biggest thing with any of these tips is that you want to frame it that you are on their side. You understand their perspective and are trying your best to help. And again, with any of the ideas that require their collaboration, you want to make it seem like it's their idea because there will be more buy-in, okay? So what do you think about this? Maybe we could try fill in the blank. How does that sound? things like that. You don't want to tell them what you're going to do about their situation, okay? Now, they might still say, no, they don't like your idea. But in saying that, it may also open the door to having a conversation about what they think may work for them. Again, there may be some trial and error, but that's just how it kind of works with most things, okay? Also, keep in mind that if they think you are the problem and that you're the one stealing from them, and there's just a general sense of distrust when it comes to you, if there's another family member in the house or another person in the house that they trust more, then it may be helpful for them to be the one to intervene versus you, okay? And if that is the case, I do not want you to take it personal. Please try not to take it personal because in most cases it is not, okay? So I do think that's all my tips for this podcast episode. Hopefully this podcast was helpful in giving you some ideas in addressing the issue with your partner hiding things. Again, remember, the most important thing that you need to figure out is why your partner is hiding things to begin with, and then determine if they are really hiding things or if it's an issue with misidentifying objects and just putting them in the wrong place, because this is going to determine how to best intervene, okay? If anyone has any questions, comments, or future podcast requests, you can send us an email at podcast@whatthedementia.com. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of What the Dementia by Bambu Care. We look forward to catching you on the next episode. Take care, and until next time, stay strong, care on, and remember, you are not alone. Bambu Care is always here.